What is one of the most important topics for women that no one ever likes to talk about, but it's obviously one of the most important topics for women? What would you say? Tzeniut. This is the first time I could say tzeniut and not tzenius. I'm so happy. Okay, you know by Ashkenazim, if you say tzeniut, no one knows what you're talking about. Okay, but tzeniut, right? Why do women not like to talk about tzeniut? It's hard to, I think much more than that, right? How do we perceive tzeniut? This is how women perceive tzeniut. First of all, if I would ask you, what is the mitzvah of tzeniut? Most people would say it means to dress modestly. Is this what people say? Yes, right? By the way, it's tzeniut applied to men also? Yes or no? Yes, 100%. How is it applied to men? They also have to dress modestly? Behavior also, for sure. But by the way, do women think tzeniut is much more applied to them than it is to everyone else? Yes or no? Yes. Every single woman in the world thinks this. And why is it that we have to keep tzeniut? This is what every single woman thinks. Because men are the weak people, and then if they're going to see us, you know what's going to happen? They might have these thoughts, and I don't know what. You know what I think? If I should protect myself so that men, I should like cover myself so men don't see me, maybe they should be blind, you know? It's not my fault I'm so pretty. What am I going to do? Okay, whatever. But really, right, tzeniut is not for men. If the whole reason why women were giving tzeniut is in order to help them, to help men, right, then it shouldn't be a mitzvah that is for women. It should really be a mitzvah for men. You should protect your eyes. By the way, if you're in a place that you don't have to be tzanua and there's a man, you don't have to cover for them because they have an obligation to protect their eyes. Now, one of the problems I've noticed a lot in the Jewish world is that women think that we do this for someone else. And therefore, you know what happens? I don't really want to criticize the religious world, but I am sure you've noticed this. You know what is one of the questions I always get when I teach? Why do women wear such beautiful long, shaitos or whatever you call them, wigs? Aren't they supposed to be modest? Yes, they are supposed to be modest. Anyways, just for your information, there's a mitzvah of covering your hair. There's a mitzvah of, being modest. They're not the same mitzvah. They should go by hand, but they're not the same. So even though I'm covering my hair in a maybe not modest way, I'm still covering my hair. But the women always ask this. Or women always say, oh, if she's religious, why does she look so attractive? I always tell people, go outside and look at the world. How many of the women that are from or that are religious actually cover their knees? Actually look modest. Really, be honest, not that many, right? They actually look so much more attractive. It's pretty hard. I see men check them out more than they check the women that are not modest. Like for real. Why? Because I think we missed out on what modesty really means. And therefore, we just do it at a set of rules, and we just do it like, okay, I'm keeping my part, but the essence of it, what it really means, we don't really have it. You understand? Because modesty is much more. And I'm going to call it tzeniut because I don't really like the word modesty. Tzeniut is much more than covering up. You could be all covered up and not be tzanua whatsoever. Because tzeniut doesn't mean that, right? Therefore, now I want to teach it to you in a way that it's completely different. You're going to see, I'm not even going to mention the word clothing. I'm not even going to mention why women have to cover up. And you're going to arrive this by yourself. You're going to see this by yourself. By the way, the Gemara says, this is a quote, every man and every woman merits to marry someone on their level. Right? This is what it says. And then it says like this, a righteous man, a man, ish tzaddik, a righteous man will marry a tzanua woman, and a wicked man will marry a perutza, a woman that is perutza, that is breached. Yes, this is what the Gemara says. So now there's an obvious question in the Gemara, which most people don't ask, but this is how it works. If we're saying that every person merits to marry someone on their level, yes, what would you say is the equal of righteous in a man by a woman? What word would you have used? What word? A man is a tzaddik. What is a woman? Tzadeket. Yes, does this make sense? Tzadkanit, whatever you want to call it. What is the equal of a man? If a man is a rasha, wicked, what would you say is the equal by a woman? Rashait. Yes, does this make sense? You check my Hebrew, right? But the Torah says no. Listen to it. It's so interesting. A man is righteous. By the woman, it's called modest. Tzanua. Not righteous. Meaning, for a woman, the greatest thing is not to be a righteous woman, it's to be a tzanua woman. Apparently, righteousness, it's all dependent on a woman, on her tzeniut. You hear this? And if you have no tzeniut, it doesn't matter how much mitzvot you do, how much you do any of these things, You're not a righteous woman. Why? By the way, we know that for men, the main mitzvah that exists is which one? Learning Torah. Why? Because for men, everything that they do, if you study Torah, you're going to end up doing everything. You know what's the equal mitzvah for woman? The Torah says it opens up every single channel of flow from heaven for you. Tzniut. So much so that we know that when God created Hava, he created her out of the rib, and he said, what? I'm going to make you out of the rib so that you should be tzanua, like the rib is. And I'm going to give you a mouth and let it be tzanua. And I'm going to give you eyes and let it be tzanua. Says the Gemara, why didn't God say, don't look at anything bad with your eyes, or don't speak lashon hara with your mouth? And apparently it means because when someone has tzniut, everything is covered. You understand? And therefore you want to have this quality. When someone has tzniut, everything is covered. But like now, I'm part of the religious world. I mean, I didn't really grow up religious. But what I see nowadays, and I'm no example of anything, is that we're really lacking on this. And the reality of why we're lacking is because we don't really know why we do it. And you know what happens? Each year, the shaitos, or whatever you call them, wigs are longer, skirts are shorter. Each time we're much more into like big things and showing off and I don't know what, because we miss the whole idea of what tzniut is. Just as every human being has a body and a soul. Can the body survive without the soul? No. Can the soul survive without the body? No. But what is more important? What gives life to what? The soul, yes? In every mitzvah, we also have a body and a soul. The body is alaha, the structure, how to do it. The soul is the understanding, the meaning. Lots of times we have a body, but we don't have a soul. And you know what happens when you take out the soul out of the body? The body will not remain for that much longer. So now I want to teach you tzniut in a completely different way. Like really, you're never going to hear a class like this one, right? I am not even going to mention women. Not even going to mention clothing. You're going to arrive at this by yourself. I'm going to show you from the Torah, where do we find all of these concepts of tzniut? And then you're really going to see, like, where do we see it? Great, so let's start from zero. I'm going to give you lots of definitions of tzniut, and then we're going to end up at the end. Great, let's start from zero. There's a famous rabbi called Pachat Yitzchak, Rav Yitzchak Kutner, and he says like this. He says, before Mashiach comes, our generation is going to be known, and we know this is in the Gemara, by chutzpah. You know what chutzpah means? Anyone Israeli? Okay, don't want to make fun of Israelis, but chutzpah means, I could care less what you think. Okay, is this like the quality that represents our generation? Yes, you have like the naked cowboy in New York. People are cuckoo. Everyone does whatever they want. The Pachat Yitzchak says, and listen to this, it says, our generation is represented by a lack of morality. Did anyone ever notice this? No morality. You see the TV. The other day I was in the gym. I put one channel, the F word 4 times in one sentence. No morality. When I used to grow up, my grandma lived in Vegas, so I could go to Vegas all the time. I love Vegas. You go to all the hotels. They have all of these women show, but it at least had X. Now you go to Vegas, no X's. Okay, you understand? You ever saw Magic Mike? No, I didn't see Magic Mike, but you know what I'm talking about. Crazy. So the rabbi said, why do we have so much lack of morality? What's going on? And he says something crazy deep. Listen to what he says. He says the lack of morality this day, and specifically in clothing, it's not that we're hot, we want to wear shorts, or we need freedom. It's much more than that. It's a rebellion against the greatest principle in the world. You know what's the greatest principle in the world? Listen to this. That man was created in the image of God. Think about this for one moment. If you would realize you're created in the image of God, which means God, the King of Kings, is your father, right? And you're pretty much his twin, okay? Would you dress the way you dress? Would you talk the way you talk? Would you act the way you act? Yes or no? Of course not, right? You ever saw Queen Elizabeth? Is she eating potato chips with her hands? Maybe in her bedroom, but not in public. Why? Because it's not dignified of the queen. She wouldn't do that in public. Do we realize that we're made in the image of God? Said the rabbi, listen to this because it's huge, right? The lack of morality these days, it's a lack of understanding of who we are. That we're really made in the image of God. The greater you think of yourself, the more, in a more respectful way you're going to behave. Everyone knows this, right? The more self-worth you have, the more you're going to behave in a way that it's going to project that self-worth. Because I'm not just too good to behave in a way that's not dignified enough for me. This is why we lack so much tzniut. Now, one time, okay, I'm shy, but you close your ears, right? one time, I have to express this to you because you're really going to see this. This is the way of the world. I always say that God puts in the TV. Whenever I go to a gym, I watch TV. God puts in the TV whatever I need to see. But apart from that, there was a famous song that existed 12 years ago or something like that. We're not judging, okay? But I know English, but I didn't really knew what it was saying. It was the year that everyone used to sing I'm blue, da ba dee da ba da. That songs, and you're like, what is this music? So there was a bunch of very popular songs on those days. Okay, so one of the songs, I'm gonna sing this to you in a few minutes, okay? We're not judging, but before that I have to give you whatever. One time I went safari with my sister. I didn't have kids, so I go safari with my sister's kids. So I'm very naive. I think being naive is very cute, very naive. Okay, I go to safari, and then, I even blush, you could see this. Therefore, I see everyone is looking at the turtles. The turtles have so much entourage. So I go to look at the turtle, and I start cracking up. So my sister looks at me, and she's like, Raquel, do you know what they're doing? I'm like, are they doing what I think they're doing? This is so weird. Okay, the turtles were making babies. I have to tell you this. It was very uncomfortable. I'm not even going to express this to you, but have you ever seen this on Discovery Channel? He hops on the other one. She tries to escape. It does not work out. Okay, this is what I thought on safari. Now, by the way, I got so uncomfortable looking at this, so uncomfortable. And then I started thinking, why was I so uncomfortable? So I remember this song. Then it happens to be I was by my in-laws in Brazil, and they go to sleep very early, by 7 I'm already at home, they're watching TV. What am I gonna do? So I sat there, they're changing channels, they end up in MTV. I haven't seen this video in 10 years. Suddenly, what comes out? The song I've been thinking about with the video. Okay, it's sung by a group called Bloodhound Gang, and everyone, have this in mind, is dressed up in animal costumes in the video, okay? Have this in mind, okay? This is the song. No judging. Goes like this. You and me, baby, we're nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. You heard that? Let's go again. You and me, baby, we're nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. And then there's a dance, which I'm not going to do because I'm on TV, okay? But everyone is dressed up like animals. So I'm looking at this, and I'm hearing these words, and I'm like, oh my God, is this not the world? We're just mammals, so do it like they do on the Discovery Channel? Like the turtles. Why not? Why should you be embarrassed? There's nothing wrong with being yourself. This is the natural world. Is this not what the world is telling you? Yes or no? We're just more developed animals, so why shouldn't you behave like that? Why should you keep things private? Why should you have any embarrassment out of anything? You know why? Because we're not animals. This is not the way that it works. We're exactly the opposite of what animals are. We're made in the image of God. We have a soul. And every action we do, it's either going to project that soul or it's going to hide it. Sometimes I go into a place and I look at it and it reminds me of the first scene of Mean Girls. Really go into a dining room, you'll notice this. People are grabbing food like they're going to starve to death. Okay, there's a day after tomorrow. But why are people doing this? Because we only live in order to satisfy our physical needs, and therefore we end up behaving like animals even though we really have a soul. People ask me all of the time, what are some of my favorite mitzvot? And I tell them really, one mitzvah that really blows my mind in Judaism is the mitzvah of intimacy, right? Now, one time I'm teaching this and I'm saying in the Torah, someone's house, a couple, their house is considered the Beit HaMikdash. Your room is considered the Kodesh HaKodashim. Your bed is the Mizbeach. Not your room. The act of being intimate with your husband is Kodesh HaKodashim. So whenever I teach college groups, people always tell me, wait, you're talking about having relations, that's Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies. How could you even connect physicality, that physicality? Because by the way, could you think of anything that's more physical or physically pleasurable than being intimate? Can you think of something that's more physically pleasurable than being intimate? Yes or no? No. This is the most physical, pleasurable thing. And this is Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies. You ever thought about this? The Torah is so complicated because it really doesn't make sense. You have two people that are totally being physical, right? And this is the Holy of Holies, says God, yes. You know why? Listen to it. Because the more chances that you have into being an animal, into doing things just for physical pleasures, the more that you can make it holy. The more that you could have an excuse of saying, you know what, I'm just doing this for physicality, and you're doing this having holiness in your mind, thinking about something great, the more special it is. By the way, you know what's the sign that it is so special and so holy? What comes out of having intimate relations? A baby. Could you be more godly than creating life? By the way, what created that life? Crazy. The act of being completely physical with one another. Says God, you know what it means to be human? Listen to this. That you could be doing the most animalistic thing and having the holiest thoughts in mind. That's what it means to be human. That's what it means to be made in the image of God. Even when you're being an animal, and by the way, you're not being an animal, but let's say, even when you could be doing something that you could say, the whole purpose of it is physicality, right? That's when you could be saying, no, I am above that. I'm made in the image of God, and your thoughts and your actions are having God in mind, and all of these things. You lift it up. And this is why, by the way, I felt uncomfortable when I saw those turtles, because I understand there's something holy about this, right? And it doesn't matter how much the world wants to take it away, we know it is holy. You know, just one more example of this, and then I continue. When the Jewish people used to go out to war, and by the way, you have to have this in mind. They used to go out to war for like years, months. You know, there wasn't like shooting and that's it. You go out, you take a little suitcase with you, and then you never see your wife, okay? When they used to go out to war, they had to take a bunch of things with them for war, okay? One of the halachot was that all of the men needed to take with them into war a shovel, okay? This is what they had to take. So now if you don't think it is funny, let me tell you why they had to take a shovel. So that when they would be in the middle of war and they did the necessities, okay, then they would take the shovel and cover it with earth. So now let me ask you something. This is men. Do men even care about, you know, all of these cleanliness things? Okay, men, don't get offended. I'm just saying, like, really? They don't care, right? You're in the middle of war. Could there be something where you're being most animalistic or like survival instinct than in the middle of war? Is there any case that you have more? No. You're in the middle of war. You have to stop and cover number 2. You hear this? Says God, yes. Because you are higher. You can't just make it in the middle. In the middle of war, where you're allowing all of your animalistic instincts to come out, says God, remember you're not an animal. Remember you're a human being. Remember you're amazing. Remember you're made in the image of God. Now again, let me ask you this question. If we would always have in mind that we're made in the image of God, and again, I don't do this all the time because sometimes I also want to be free and like let go, right? But how would I behave? And by the way, would I feel it as a burden that I have to behave in such a special way? Do I feel it as a burden? I don't think Kate Middleton feels a burden of dressing the way she does, because that's what expresses that she's royalty. Would you feel it as a burden? You know, Queen Elizabeth, I read somewhere that when she got crowned, her crown weighed, I think 37 pounds. 37. And she had to wear this in her head for like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Okay, imagine like a fisherman is coming and he's wearing one of these like whatever hats, and he tells her, do you want to exchange? Would she say yes? No, 37 pounds. That's like carrying a 4-year-old on your head. Why wouldn't she exchange it? Because it's the sign of glory. It's the sign of respect. It's the sign of my greatness. I would never exchange it with someone else. You understand? And therefore, when I understand all of these things, yes, it is weight, but it's weight I want to carry. It's weight that is beautiful. This is why, let me give you the first definition of tzniut. Yeah, I'm going to give you lots of them, but the first one, right? Shlomo HaMelech says in Shir HaShirim, what is tzniut, sort of, he says it in a certain way, or what is a Jewish woman, right? And he says like this, Suga bashoshanim, a fence of roses, okay? A Jewish woman, she's a fence of roses. Not only the Jewish woman, but the Jewish people, we're a fence of roses. So our rabbis ask, imagine you're standing in front of somewhere, and the place is protected by a fence of roses. Is that a good fence? Would you ever protect like the Mona Lisa or like something very expensive with a fence of roses? Is a fence of roses hard to breach? Yes or no? No. Is it hard to destroy? No. So now let me ask you a question and think very well of your answer. I'm standing in front of a fence of roses, right? What is the only thing keeping me from stepping and breaching and breaking this fence? What's the only thing keeping me from doing it? The thorns? No, you could wear gloves. You could wear boots. What is the only thing? It's beautiful. A fence of roses, listen to this, its strength relies on its beauty. Have you ever gone to a Knesset? There's a whole park outside where it has all the roses, right? Would you ever want to step on it? You know what you would do when you see something so beautiful? You want to like protect it. Not only do you not want to break it, you want to protect it. Say our rabbis, the greatness of a fence of roses relies in its beauty. It is so beautiful, how can you destroy it? You hear this? You know, in Panama, I don't know where it is where you come from, but like when you go to a bar mitzvah, whatever, you have like a table of desserts. Anyone Syrian here? Okay. So they make like marzipan with like every shape and color and apricots. Okay, so really in Panama we have events every week, so it's okay. But like when you see this for the first time, people just take it home to like show their children. You want to eat it? No, they have like miniature wedding cakes and this and that. I mean, they taste good, so I do eat them. But the point is, if I would only see them one time, would I eat it? Of course not. It is so pretty, you know? When something is so pretty, you don't want to destroy it. Like you get so much pleasure out of just looking at it, right? Like you can't imagine how it would be if it would be destroyed. If you would understand how beautiful you are, you understand this? You would not only never breach it, you would protect it with everything that it is. Because I am just that beautiful. And by the way, I deal a lot with girls. You know when girls fall lowly and they do all of these things? When they feel like trash. When you consider yourself that amazing, you don't behave in many ways. You know, like when I was growing up, you know, I wasn't tsanua, I didn't dress modestly or anything. But for me, I never thought I needed religion to teach me this. I just thought it's a thing of principles. You know, like self-respect, where is that these days? And the idea is we don't understand we're made in the image of God. We don't understand the beauty that we have. You know, there's a very big question that you always have to ask yourself in Judaism. Is it dignified? Is it dignified for me? Is it in my level? And again, the greater you consider yourself, the more rules that come with that greatness. Because those rules is exactly what's going to protect the greatness. And now, I don't even need to make a metal fence. I don't even need a bronze fence. If it's so beautiful, I don't want to destroy it because I know it's so beautiful. So number one, what's a niyut? A fence made out of roses, whatever. Tzeniut is, how beautiful are you? What is it beautiful? How do you protect that beauty? What does it mean to you? Am I made in the image of God? What does that mean? Let me bring it to a next level, right? It goes like this. Shlomo HaMelech wrote like this, right? Shlomo HaMelech is the wisest person that ever existed. We don't have a board, but he says like this. Ve'et tzenuim chokhmah. I'm going to translate. Ve'et tzenuim chokhmah. It means like this. In those that are tsanua, there is wisdom. Again, ve'et tzenuim chokhmah. In those that are tsanua, there is wisdom. Question, does it mention women? Does it mention clothing? No, right? What does it say? If you're tsanua, you have wisdom. Apparently, what does it imply? Listen to it. That wisdom, that tzeniut, it's a container for wisdom. Yes? Is this what it's saying? Ve'et tzenuim chokhmah. Tzeniut, it's a container for wisdom. Yes? Yes. So that means that if I want to be wise, I need to dress up like a nerd? No, that's not what it's saying. What is it saying? So now I'm going to tell you something that sounds a little funny, but it really is very deep, okay? Let's say you have a baby, okay? Do we like naked babies? Yes. If you have a baby, what does everyone loves about the babies? What would you say are number 3, top 3 parts of a baby that you love? Touching on your what? Thighs. What else? Arms. Really? Oh, yeah, I like the hands. But yeah, what else? Cheeks. What else? Neck? Okay, you don't get to talk. No, I'm joking, but fine. Give her all the necks. Right? What do people like? Cheeks, the tushy. Does everyone love the tushy? I love tushy. My baby could poop. I clean her, and then I give her a little bite. Okay, I know what you're thinking. You know what? You're going to bite your baby's tushy, too, even after she pooped. Okay, but what is the point, right? We love babies, okay? Naked, they're better. By the way, does everyone love chubby babies? Okay, if they grow up to be chubby, bar minam, you'll never get married, okay? But when you're little, you want them to be, we call them the Michelin babies. You know what I'm talking about? The ones that look like the tires. Okay, not me, because I'm traumatized, but like, you want them to be chubby, something to grab, like a skinny baby, lo yafe. Now, let's say they're 2 years old, right? Are you still that obsessed with their tushy, yes or no? 2 years old, you like their tushy, but not that upset. Let's just say I'm not going to kiss her tushy after she poops, okay? Also because her poop is going to smell that much worse. But apart from that, not going to do it. When they're 5, are you that obsessed with them physically? No. If they're changing in front of you and they're not your kid, it's like, okay, this is weird. I could tell you apart. When they're 20, are you that obsessed? Heck no. Not even your husband. You know what I'm saying? Like private, okay? When they're 60, do you want to see them naked? Ugh, it would call it disgusting. It would even call the police. It's illegal, right? Now, why is it so disgusting? And don't tell me because they're old, because some old people work out, and they look good, okay? Why is it so disgusting? Now, listen to my question. 1 second. It's so deep. What is that transition point, okay, that makes it that a baby, the more physical they are, the more you like them, and you just all like physical, okay? And as they grow up, you stop liking it, you feel like uncomfortable, you even think it's disgusting, right? What is the transition point? Macara, yeah.
As a baby, the baby is just pure innocence.
It's pure. Why is it pure innocence?
Because starting his life with a blank slate.
It is pretty blank, but why is that? What does that have to do with showing the body? Think about this for 1 moment, but it is pure. But why is it pure? Why? Listen to why. A baby doesn't have a yetzer tov. A baby hasn't developed his soul. And therefore the purity of the baby comes actually from the fact that he has no idea he's a soul, because he hasn't developed that yet. And therefore, what do you think of him? He's a body. And therefore, what makes sense? The more meaty the baby is, the cuter it is. Because really, a baby, it's a body. They haven't developed a soul yet. And therefore, for them to not relate to their soul, it's okay, because they're really a body. Their purity comes from lack of understanding of what they are and who they are. And therefore, there's no way of behavior because you don't know. But now, as they grow up, do you expect them to relate to their soul much more than they relate to their body? Yes, so much so that by the time you're 60, if you're dressed or undressed, it's just like, hello, you should know better. You're not a body, you're a soul. And the fact that you're just projecting yourself as a soul, as a body, and not as a soul, that really bothers me. You hear that? Therefore, what does Shlomo HaMelech says? Wise. Be'et tzenuim chokhmah. In those that are tzenua, there's wisdom. Because tzeniut, it's a container for wisdom. Let me say this to you in different ways. Life, it is not about what you know. It is about how do I act according to what do I know. I'll say this again. It is not about what you know. It's about how do I act according to that which I know. Because I could know a lot, but no one is going to see that. My knowledge should affect my behavior, right? And if I behave in a way that doesn't reflect what I know, then really I don't know anything. There was one time, and by the way, again, this is the way of the world. Someone was talking to Aristoteles, okay, Aristotle, whatever you call him, right? And we know that he was very deep thinker, ethics, God, I don't know what, philosopher. So one time someone asked him, because we know that the Greek sages were very immoral. You follow Greek history? They used to go around with boys, I don't know what, very immoral. So one time someone asked Aristoteles, if you teach so much about ethics and morale, how could you behave in such an immoral way? You know what he answers? It's going to sound funny, but it's not. He says, what? If I teach math, I should behave like a triangle? You know what he's saying? What I teach and who I am, not the same thing. Is this the way of the world? One thing outside, one thing inside? Judaism is toho kevaro. Your outside should reflect your inside. And your inside should affect your outside. But now let me ask you one more question. Why is the person that is asking Aristoteles this, why do you care? Let him do whatever he wants. Because if you're that great, you should behave that great. And if not, you're really not that great. If you see your teacher, poking his nose, okay? Does everyone poke their nose? Yes, you do, okay? But if you see your teacher doing it, would you be like, this is horrible? Yes, why? Because he's your teacher, he should know better. You know how you know this? Look at it in the other side. If you see a child with a disability in a bus poking their nose, do you judge them? No. Okay, maybe you don't want to touch them because they just poke their nose. But do you judge them? No, because what would you say? Because they don't what? They don't know any better. Yes? What's the other side of that? If they don't know any better, they're not judged. That means that when I know better, I should do better. Yes or no? If I know better, I should do better. This is why, let me give you an idea. The Torah says, quote, intellect is shame, shame is intellect. Again, intellect is shame, shame is intellect. You know what shame is? Again, it's understanding of who I am and what rules come with that. Shame is not like I'm shy. Shame is not like, hello, if someone would catch me poking my nose, it's not dignified of me. How could I do this? It is not about what you know. It's about how do you act according to what you know, right? Now, if you have a mom like this, don't say it out loud because you don't want to. But you know when you have those moms that look really, really good and they dress exactly like their daughters, except they're 20 years apart. You know what I'm talking about? And then the guys come like, oh my God, your mom is so hot. Okay, you're all women. Does anyone wants to hear that their mom is hot? Yes or no? Never. Would you be embarrassed? Very embarrassed. You want your mom to be pretty, yes, but not hot. Because that means someone looked at her in a way that wasn't right. Now, by the way, again, if your mom does look so good, why can't she dress like that? You know, like moms nowadays, you know, like they're 60 years old and wear leggings. What the heck? Like leggings are like tights, you know, like don't wear that. Do we all have issues with this? Now that you're young, don't do this when you're 60. Why do we have issues with this? She looks good, let her wear whatever she wants. Why do we have issues with this? Because she's a mom. Never she should behave like a mom. And when you're dressed in that way, you're not portraying yourself in that way, right? If, you know, like when I started teaching, I was very, very young. So I teach here in Neve, which is a very important place, you know, whatever. But I was like 24. So I've been having an identity crisis since then, okay? Because I'm like an important teacher, but then I'm like a little kid, you know? So like whatever. One time I was going to a wedding. I didn't used to go to weddings so much because I didn't know if I should sit on the teacher's table or the student's table. Okay, but the point is, one time I went to a wedding and I was like, you know, like picking up a dress. Okay, I like follow rules of modesty. But it was a dress that was a color that wasn't not modest, but it wasn't the most modest. It was like peach for me. Not like peach like this, like peach, you know? So like I'm looking at this dress, I want to wear it. Now it doesn't fit me, so I don't have the question anymore. But the point is, I'm taking out this dress, and suddenly I realize, hello, you have a big job now. You're like a teacher in Neve Yerushalayim, you know, like whatever. I think it's a little hard to like fit in with this job at my age, but whatever. So then I stopped and I said, is this dress dignified for what you're representing right now? And then I realized, no, it's completely modest, but it doesn't go with my job description. You understand? Is this all of life, by the way? Yes or no? Yes. You want to portray yourself. Now, by the way, right, I'm going to tell you something very important. I'm not talking so much about clothing. I'm still here, but listen to it. Our sages teach, right? Quote, man is the glory of God. The glory of man is his clothing. You hear this? I'll say this again. Our rabbis teach us, quote, man is the glory of God. The glory of man is his clothing. What does this mean? This means, SAT question, man is for God what clothing is for man. Yes? Beautiful. Now, what does this mean? What does it mean that we're the glory of God? Yes? And now you're going to understand a lot the concept of like Kiddush Hashem, Chilul Hashem, whatever it is. The greatest thing, the greatest everything, it's God, yes? But because he's so great, are we able to understand God, yes or no? No, because there's no point of reference. We cannot understand God. Yes, this is part of like the principles of faith. How do we understand God? Let's say, right, obviously not comparing, but let's say I never met Picasso. Okay, you know who's Picasso? Good. How would I understand Picasso? By getting to see what? His paintings. Because what? Your creations are an expression of yourself. Does that make sense? Great. Now, I cannot ever get to know God. Does that make sense? Ever. But my question is, okay, if I would want to understand God's greatness, right, and the unlimited and everything about God, what would I have to understand from God? His creations, yes, because his creations is expressing what God is, in a certain sense, to a maximum of my ability to understand it, yes? Now, if I would really want to know how good Picasso is, which painting should I check? His most famous painting, yes? If I really want to understand as much as I can God, what should I check? His greatest creation. What's the greatest creation God ever made? Human beings. We're like a body with a soul and we're functioning. It's crazy, right? We are the glory of God. Now, specifically we, the Jewish people, because we're the ambassadors of God in this world, right? This is why we have such a big mitzvah called Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem, which pretty much means the world doesn't really know God, but judges God through whichever way you behave. Does this make sense? Do we all do this? You look at someone religious and you're like, this is the way you act and you're from? Okay, by the way, religious people are not perfect. They're just trying, but they're not perfect. But why do they have such a bigger, responsibility? Because you're supposedly representing God in a bigger way. Because you're right? Now, what is the Torah saying? Something huge. I cannot get to know God, but I could get to know about God through looking at his creations. What is the greatest creation of God? Man. If I get to see man, if I get to understand man, I could see what God is. This is why, by the way, we're all into children and all of these things. Because if you ever think about it, if I make cookies and each one comes out exactly the same, that's like, wow, that's amazing. How did you do it? You ever thought about this? Why do religious people like having so many children? Really, you're only obligated to have 2, right? Why do religious people have so many kids? Because each single person is so unique. And to create 100 unique people, not big deal. To create 1 million unique people, to create 7 billion unique people, that's like, wow. And then for the more children you have, the more you're expressing God's greatness in this world. Because really, how do you make that many cookies? And okay, obviously not cookies, but they all look different. What man is for God, listen to this, is what clothing is for man. Why? Can you get to know someone else just by meeting them? Yes or no? No. But you know what you could get to know? What they're expressing. Let me ask you a question. What is the first thing you get to see in a person and understand them through that thing? Their clothing. Yes or no? Now, by the way, I know what you're thinking. You shouldn't judge people on the outside. But do we all do that? Of course we do. You know why we judge people? The Torah never says you shouldn't judge. It says to judge favorably. You know why the Torah never says you shouldn't judge? Because how can you define what's right and wrong without judging what's right and wrong? We have to judge. It just tells you parameters on how to judge. But do we all judge? Yes? Yes. Can you always make up a new first impression? No. If I ever look at you, can I understand you? No. But what do I understand from you? The clothing. By the way, this is why everyone is so much into fashion. Does that make sense? Because what is fashion? I'm expressing myself, right? So now the question is, if you know that what you're putting out there is what people are going to see, so first of all, why do you choose to put out there something that you don't want people to see, right? That's the first question. Second of all, this is how you're going to portray yourself. This is what people are going to look from you. This is your glory. The way you dress, and you're going to see this from my class, right? The way you dress, it's expressing how you look at yourself. Because this is what I'm choosing to put out. If I have a jewelry store, what do I put out on the display window? Something that expresses my kind of jewelry. If I have a restaurant, what do I put out? You understand? Now, what is the thing, right? And I'm going to tell you something really interesting. By the way, again, what I choose to put outside, this is what people are going to see. Now, do I judge? Yes. Do you judge? Yes. Should we not judge? That's a different question. But the question is, do we judge? Yes. So if you know you're going to be judged by what you put outside, then why don't you choose better what you're going to put outside? You know this is what people are going to see. And by the way, the whole question is, why are you choosing to express yourself in such a way? By the way, let me tell you something even greater. There's a famous saying, I don't know who said it, but probably it must have been someone Chinese because they're wise. He said like this, quote, people act the way they think people think of them. You heard that? I'm going to say it again. People act the way they think people think of them. Everyone got this? You don't act the way you want. You don't act the way you think people want you to act. Listen to it. You act the way you think people are thinking you should act. Yes? By the way, now, according to what we said, what is it that we show of ourselves? Some people are looking at us through that, what we're wearing. Does that make sense? Now, let's say you go partying. What do you wear? Something good and sexy, yes? Because you want people to consider you sexy, right? This is what you want people to look. Now, by the way, you could check this out in all of the movies. I'll give you an example. You know when you have like a girl that doesn't have so much self-confidence, she's not that pretty, so she's always shy and like whatever, and then suddenly it's her sister's wedding, and she has like all of the makeup in the world and an updo and like a gorgeous dress. Have you ever seen her walk, like when she goes in, She's like suddenly like self-confidence. What the heck happened? I don't know. You know what happened? She thinks people are thinking, oh my God, you look so good. And therefore, how is she acting? I look good. Does that make sense? Is that true? You ever saw Anastasia? I love Anastasia. Life, it's a road, and I want to keep going. Okay, we're not going to sing. But if you ever saw Anastasia, all of the time that she was dressed as a tomboy, she acted exactly as a tomboy. Then she went to this like gala, right, by the way, and then she was like going to an opera. What was it? I don't like opera. You know how she goes to Dimitri? She stands like this. Why? I look respectful, and therefore you have to treat me with respect. Does the clothing that we wear affect how we act? Yes or no? 100%. If you're going to a very important job interview, do you dress in a very serious way? Yes. Why? Because what would you say? I want them to take me. Who says you're serious anyways? But they're thinking I'm serious, and therefore I'm going to behave in a serious way. Yes or no? Yes or no? By the way, you could see this with everything. You could see this with hairstyle, clothing. When you want to look elegant, and you could see this again, most people wear an updo. You ever notice this? When people want to look formal, they don't wear their hair down like wild. An updo, because you want to look all well put together. You know, I saw this video on Facebook, like 100 years of fashion in 2 minutes. Anyone saw this? Yeah. I'm not teaching you about a hair covering, so we don't have time. But if you ever notice this, each generation is defined by the hairstyle of that generation. By the way, what's the hairstyle of this generation? Just think about it for one moment. You know what's the hairstyle of this generation? Long and wild. By the way, this never happened before, if you notice. Nowadays, everyone lets their hair go very long, and it's just like, whatever. By the way, you know which other generation had very wild hair? And just think about what that generation represented. Which one? Which generation had very wild hair? The hippies, no? Or the afro, I don't know what you want to call it. What was that generation about? Breaking rules. You know, just think about this for one moment. I even have a whole Devar Torah, which I don't have time to teach you. But if you ever look at Disney movies, okay? All of the Disney princesses, the way they're dressed and specifically their hairstyle has to do exactly with their personality. Out of every single Disney princess, which one would you say was the most modest? The most like, you know, like inner? Cinderella, even more than Cinderella, but Cinderella is number 2. Snow White, very short hair. Then you have Cinderella, but then she like breaks the rules a little bit, so her hair grows back. Then what do you get? Ariel, Jasmine, check this out. Who was the most wild of all of the princesses? Came out 2 years ago. Who saw this movie? No, another one? Maybe you didn't see that one because it wasn't so good. Anyone saw Brave? How was her hair? Total red and like all over the place. Why? She was all rebellious. You know, I was one time thinking about this, and I'm like, wow, whoever designed. It's amazing how they designed the Disney character according to her personality. Amazing, you know? And you know, at the moment they break through, you ever saw Ariel? She like has her hair on or whatever, and then when she goes into a water, it's like, hey, I want to be free. Then the hair goes, exactly a moment. Why? Because this is how we're portraying ourselves. This is what affects us. So by the way, not only am I choosing to express myself through my clothing, yes, but the clothing and how I put myself outside, that's going to affect my inside. So why in Judaism, we always say, fake it till you make it. No, it's not being a hypocrite. It's understanding that your outside affects you. Because you act the way you think people think of you. You understand? And therefore, right now, we have to like sort of wrap up for today. What are we saying? This is what we're saying till now, right? Modesty, it's a fence of roses. It's recognizing my beauty. The more I know, the more I should act according to what I know. If I don't act according to what I know, then I don't really know anything. If you're better, you should behave better. You should be expressing that greatness that you have in yourself. But now sometimes I think I'm good, but I'm not expressing that. And guess what? No one is going to perceive that. You understand? And therefore, anyways, I haven't said anything about clothing yet, but this is what I want you to understand. Tzeniut, it's a sense of shame. Shame means, how great am I? You know, shame means there's always someone that's watching me. You know, the Torah says that when Adam and Chava were in the Garden of Eden, both of them were naked and they were not embarrassed. Why were they not embarrassed? Because they didn't knew they were naked. And therefore, if I know I'm naked, shouldn't I be embarrassed? Yes or no? 100%. Because if I know, intellect is shame, shame is intellect. It's not what I know, it's how do I act according to a way that I know. Right? So I'll continue with this next time. Any questions till now? Okay, thank you.